paper would have been nice. I used email. Well, I haven't known Mike quite as long as some of you folks, but I met Mike about 5 years ago at the BZ Corner grocery store, or as he's so lovingly called, John Mindy's. I had just moved to the area. I moved to Maupin, Oregon, about an hour and 15 minutes from here, and I worked a morning trip over in Maupin, and I wanted to go do a truss lap. My only person I knew in town, he was busy, and I was banking on him being able to boat, so I went up to BZ to try and find someone to boat with, and I sat around at the takeout for a little while, and I wasn't having any luck, and so I was like, okay, I guess I'll head out of here, and I drove to the store to grab a snack, and I see this big old red flatbed truck with this like white and green Nomad on the back, and Mike. I introduced myself, and I was like, hi, I'm Brent. You want to do a truss lap by any chance? And he's like, well, never done a truss lap before. I was like, is that any reason not to do one now? And he just looks at me for a second, and he's just like, nope. And I'm just like, all right. Right about that moment, I saw a car drive by that I recognized, and I was like, all right, well, meet me at the takeout in like 15 minutes. I think I see someone I recognize. Let's we'll go do a lap. And so I showed him down the truss that day. It was actually a little while before I saw him again. I didn't really live in town at the time. I was living over in Maupin. But that fall, the next time I saw him, I was going down the farmland section of the White Salmon. And it was my first time down that section. We're paddling down the flat water below the first gorge, and I see a guy on the side of the river. He started like hollering at us, and I'm just like, oh, well, hey, what's up? And he's like, you ain't seen a creek boat around here, have you? And sure enough, we actually had seen a creek boat on the side of the river, just a couple corners upstream, maybe 5 minutes ago. You know, if you're walking, maybe it'll be like 10 minutes for you to get there, but you're pretty close. You're on the right direction. And he thanked us, and continued on wandering through the woods, and we continued on paddling. At this point, I was living here now. I'd moved down to where I live now, and so I started seeing Mike around all the time. We started paddling together. He was living at the Orletta house. Our friend Charlie, he worked on wind turbines and was gone all the time, so Mike would always watch the Orletta house while he was gone. And then at the time, Charlie was gone for a good amount of time. He was down in Ecuador for the winter. And so me and Mike would just meet up. We'd meet at the Orletta house. We'd split a bunch of firewood. We'd get the wood stove going, rip roaring. It was only softwood, so the fire didn't really last that long, but it lasted a truss lap. We'd go do a truss lap. We'd go back to the Orletta house, and the fire would just be about out, and then we'd light a fire again. And yeah, that was that winter. We did a whole lot of boating. Pretty much any time I had a day off. I was working up at Meadows at the time, and towards the end of that winter, Charlie got back from Ecuador, and Mike was looking for a place, and I offered him a place in the Beaver Lodge, and he moved in, and we lived together and boated together ever since then. So I think I really got to know Mike when we did a trip down to California together towards the end of that winter. It got pretty cold that winter, and so we wanted to get out of the heat, or out of the cold, to the heat of California. But we chose during we went to it was like the first year of Boatsmith, and it was scheduled to downpour, rain / snow the entire time. So we get there, and Mike, all he's brought with him for camping gear is his sleeping bag and a bivvy. That's all he's brought. And so we have one tarp, and he had a sleeping bag and a bivvy. And Mike slept under that tarp that first night. When I got up in the morning, it was quite the sight. It's just like we had this little fire pan, like this small, tiny little tarp, and he's just cuddled up next to this fire pan. But he was content. That he wouldn't have had it any other way. The next day, our friend Will actually ended up donating him a tent. That tent is still probably in the shed at the Orletta house. So, oh yeah, on that drive down to California, Mike told me a lot of stories. He told me, about his times paddling in New York on the off-stable chasm. One of his old nicknames was Chasm Mike because he was always paddling on that section so often. He told me stories back when he was living in that town in Southern Oregon. You said the name earlier. I don't remember what it was, but he lived like right off of this tributary of the North Umpqua. And one day he had a few days off of work and his truck was in the shop. And so he decided he was going to paddle this little creek into the North Umpqua, and then paddle the North Umpqua all the way to the main Umpqua, all the way to the ocean. And he was just telling me he's still, paddling down the main Umpqua, and he runs into these fishermen, and they're just like in this big old eddy. And he like asks about that. He's like, how's the fishing going? And he's like, good. And they're like, good. No, it's great up here. And they're like, is the fishing good down there? And they're like, oh, we don't go down that way. That's the biggest rapid on the Umpqua. Mike looks at him like really strangely. They're like, oh yeah, no, it's rough waters down there. Mike looks at him and is like, yeah, thanks for the warning. And continues to paddle on down. He made it to about a half a mile from the ocean. He got distracted by a bakery, and he ended up hitchhiking from that bakery back to town and had to work the next day. He made it to tidal waters though. Every spring we go up to Idaho and do some sort of an overnight trip or go to the Lochsaw or something. He was pretty much our overnight buddy. Always rode with us, always shuttled with us. Even if that did end up making us the last person on the beach because of it. We were always happy to have that red Bills bag of his, and that Fruita bag, and of course that his little blue watershed bag. We paddled hard rivers together. We paddled, calm, mellow rivers together. Didn't really matter. It didn't really matter the temperature. We paddled on the hottest days. I remember we paddled a day it was 117 degrees, and we paddled a day that it was 17 degrees. Mike, I don't know another person that you can convince to go slicey boating when it's like 17 degrees out. We definitely did several bottom white salmon laps where we sliced for hours on end when the walls were covered in ice. We figured it would be better for the boats. We'd scrape less plastic on the walls if the walls were covered in ice. So, not to mention, Mike was at the time wearing a dry suit that it was. I would not call it really a dry suit. It had so many holes in it. One of them, he told me, it was one of the biggest holes. It had been chewed up by a cow. But it didn't stop him for slicing for hours on end in the middle of the winter. Mike. Mike had a lot of nicknames, but Mike also really liked to give nicknames. He had his own special nicknames for both my dogs. My dog Bear, he always called Jala. Our friend Pegleg Mike, everyone calls him Pegleg Mike. Mike didn't like calling him Pegleg Mike. He didn't like calling him by his disability. And so Mike was always trying to come up with a new nickname for Mike. His favorite was always Malala Mike. But I would always bring up the point that Mike doesn't live on the Malala, he just is off the Malala exit. I safety boated for Mike a number of times when he raft guided, and I gotta say, I don't think any other customers ever got quite the experience that Mike's customers got. I was forever changed by his safety speech. I feel like my safety speech, once I heard his safety speech, my safety speech changed significantly. And I had a pretty dialed-in safety speech. Yeah, sorry, it's, you just gave everyone such a wonderful experience. I'll never forget you, Mike. Cheers to Mike.
Thank you, Brent. And now Malala Mike has some words to share.